The tradition of Festivus begins with the airing of grievances. And in the words of the great Frank Costanza, I've got a lot of problems with you people, and now you're going to hear about it.
So we have about 3 different issues that are all combining today that we have to try to find a solution for. Here's the first, and it's an issue. The issue is that Alex and Holly and Xavier next Sunday morning will be in Bloomington, Indiana, starting a brand new ministry at Bloomington, Indiana First Church. We're excited for that. But we want them to take something from us with them that'll last the rest of their life. Not some little trinket that'll be in a garbage can in a year from now, but something that will last. So that's the first thing. The second is not really our issue. The second is Alex's problem. There's many problems Alex has, but this is Alex's problem. And this problem is, you don't know, one of the little quirks of the church that he's going to is it has this very large pastor's office with shelves all the way around. And he says, I can't fill up these shelves. They'll just be empty shelves. So we want to help him with this empty shelf problem. And there's one last thing. Alex, you come up. One last thing. One thing the church has done for 2,000 years is we have taken pagan concepts, pagan festivals, pagan entities, and we've tried to Christianize them, and we've done a very good job. But as we sit here in 2021 now, there is one last remaining pagan entity that we have yet to touch, and that's the New York Yankees. And unfortunately, at various times in the last 5 years, Alex has drug you down into his Yankee gutter on Sunday morning. And so what we're going to try to do is fill up his shelf, somehow Christianize this last pagan entity, and give him a memento. That's 3 things, but I think we can do it all with one thing. You know, it was about June of 2015, Alex and I had our first conversation about him coming. It started off a number of conversations. And for the last 5.5 years, I appreciate his consistency. I appreciate his friendship. All the discussions, usually on Tuesday morning in my office. I also appreciate the way he's just dove into the life of the church. And that's valuable. And we want to wish him well. And so here's my attempt to address all 3 of these issues. Now, I'm not going to touch this myself because I don't want my fingerprints to be on this at all. You can take that good or bad. You can take that because it's Yankee colors and I don't want to touch anything Yankee colors. Or this, he knows I'm a little quirky and I don't like fingerprints on things. And so I don't want my fingerprints on his thing. So Alex, you can put this on your shelf in your new office.
I love it.
It is in Yankee colors, navy blue and white. It has his name on the handle. And here on the barrel of the bat, it says, "Thank you for 5.5 years of faithful service. May God richly bless you, Mundelein Church of the Nazarene." And so let's give Alex... And I'll yield the pulpit to you.
Thank you so much. I also have a bat, so I could have hit him if he didn't. Yeah, good morning, church.
Good morning, Alex.
I wrote everything down to say today. I want to start with a story. Many Christmases ago, I went to buy a doll for my son. And I reached for the last one they had, but so did another man. As I rained blows upon him, I realized that there had to be another way. What happened to the doll, you may ask? It was destroyed. But out of that, a new holiday was born. A Festivus for the rest of us. The year was 1997. And the very popular show Seinfeld was coming to an end, and it was during this final season that a cultural phenomenon was born. And I don't know if they knew it would be a cultural phenomenon, but it became one. Jerry Stiller, who is the father of Ben Stiller, played George's dad and uttered those famous lines that I just read and birthed a new holiday that people celebrate to this day. Now, Festivus is traditionally celebrated on December 23rd. But among all of our Christmas hoopla, we didn't take any time to celebrate Festivus as a church. So I decided that we would have a belated Festivus celebration this morning. Now, I know this is not a Christian holiday per se, but here's the truth. There is no better Sunday to preach this sermon than on your last Sunday at a church. And now, like any good Festivus celebration, you know where this one begins. The tradition of Festivus begins with the airing of grievances. And in the words of the great Frank Costanza, I've got a lot of problems with you people, and now you're going to hear about it. And here they are. First, now this one, I wrote this a few days ago, and this one is going to hit a little differently than it did a few days ago. So imagine it's a few days ago, and it will hit better. First, when I moved here, everyone asked me, do you get a lot of snow in Ohio? And the answer is yes. Ohio is in the Midwest. I don't know where people thought Ohio was, but we're in the Midwest. Yes, we get a lot of snow. But the implication in the asking of that question was this. You're going to get more snow than you can handle here. Are you ready for our snow? That was the implication. And here's my question. I'm going to put this down or it's going to fall. Here's my question. Where's the snow? We haven't had one crazy snowy winter yet. I've been here for 6 winters. We haven't had one. We've had some storms. We've had some snow. We have snow now. We haven't had one crazy snowy winter yet. I have a grievance. My second grievance is with Major League Baseball. MLB, get it together. Every other sports league has been able to move through this pandemic without looking like a bunch of idiots. Why can't you just get into a room and make this work? My third grievance is for Cubs fans. Oh yeah, let's talk. You won the World Series in 2016. Why couldn't you just act like you've been there before? Never mind, Cubs fans, I get it. Fourth, I have a grievance with the state of Illinois. Seriously, that's enough taxes. That's enough taxes. My fifth grievance is with the federal government. So many. I expect almost nothing from you, yet you are a continual disappointment. I'm constantly let down by your ineptitude and your gross incompetence. Sixth, I have a grievance with COVID. You know what you did, and I hate you for doing it. Now, on a more local level, let's do this. Libby, my grievance with you is that you never let me double dip. Sometimes the chip tastes better after you've dipped it, eaten the dip off, and dip it again. Don't judge me for double dipping. Rick. Mustard does not go in baked beans. It's disgusting. Stop it. Get some help. You, Wade. You need to put more creamer in your coffee. No, more than that. Keep pouring. More. All right, that should be good. I don't want it to taste too much like coffee. In the back row, Kaylin. Turkey bacon is an abomination unto the Lord, and you should feel bad for propagating that wretched industry. Disgusting. And Pastor Doug, I will fight you until one of us is in our grave on this. But sandals are shoes. Now, obviously all of those were meant to be silly, except for the sandals. But I do have a number of things I'd like to say this morning before we leave. These are my grievances, if you will. My first grievance with you is that you opened your lives too much. In John 17, Jesus prays for his disciples, and he says, I will remain in the world no longer, but they, the disciples, are still in the world. Holy Father, protect them by the power of your name, the name you gave me, so that they may be one as we are one. When I think of the church, I think of a group of people who live their lives in community. This means they celebrate good things together, they mourn together, they eat together, they laugh together, and they pray together, among other things. We've had the opportunity over the last 5 years to celebrate with you. We've celebrated babies being born. We've celebrated birthdays. We've celebrated weddings. We've celebrated anniversaries. We've celebrated baptisms. You celebrated my son's baptism in this very room. We've celebrated together as people have entered into this church and then they stuck. We've celebrated as people have committed their lives to Christ. We've also mourned with you. In living lives together, we've walked through unspeakable grief and pain together. I've never been a part of a church that lives life together so well. I've had the opportunity to go into so many of your homes and share meals with you. We've had many of you over to our home to share meals with us. And I think the church is at its best when it's acting as a sort of a counter-cultural force. And our culture values independence and individualism. And to be fair, I think those are both virtues. But I think we have shown a way of living here that goes against that grain from time to time. Sharing meals with you and laughing around a table will forever be one of the great joys of my life. That was number one. Number two, my second grievance with you is that you have been too generous. In 2 Corinthians chapter 9, Paul says, remember this, whoever sows sparingly will also reap sparingly, and whoever sows generously will also reap generously. Each man should give what he has decided in his heart to give, not reluctantly or under compulsion, for God loves a cheerful giver. We've been here for 5.5 years. We've celebrated Christmas with you 6 times. We've gone through Pastor Appreciation Month 6 times, and we have been unbelievably blessed with gifts and notes and cards and thoughts and prayers more times than I can even count. Holly and I are grateful for everything that you've done for us over the past 5 years. You showered us with gift cards when we first got here, and you've continued blessing us with gifts throughout our time here. The generosity of the people of the Mundelein Church of the Nazarene is a goal that I will strive to meet for the rest of my life. Our annual tradition of giving to small church pastors at Christmas time is a remarkable way of living out our faith. And getting the opportunity to serve alongside so many of you as we went to Costa Rica a few years ago was a privilege that I'll never forget. It was an honor to get the chance to see our faith in action as we assisted in the building of the Los Angeles church. Your generosity made that possible, both on individual levels and corporately as a body. It's been a pleasure for me to watch as this community of believers rallied around single mothers, around widows, and around other people who have been down on their luck. And you also paid a spectacular amount of money making sure that our students, your students, could go to NYC in 2019. You have been so generous. In 1 Thessalonians, at the end of the letter, Paul writes, be joyful always, pray continually, give thanks in all circumstances, for this is God's will for you in Christ Jesus. When we first came up here for an interview, we were so nervous about moving across the Midwest to Chicagoland. We didn't know anyone here. We didn't know what life would look like. And honestly, we were overwhelmed with the prospect of it all. But we watched as God seemingly orchestrated the move. It felt to us as if things fell into place that shouldn't have fallen into place as we were preparing to move here. And I think that's because people were praying for us. And the truth is, that's my third grievance. You prayed too much. Pastor Doug always tells me that the most important thing we do on Sunday mornings is pray together. The time of pastoral prayer is one of the most sincere blessings that your pastor gets each week. As your pastors, we know a lot of the things that you're going through. and we are given time each week to lead the church in corporate prayer, both for the things folks know about and for the things that they don't know about. Those things are all covered on Sunday mornings by the prayer of the saints. But for me, there's not been a day since we first accepted this position that we haven't felt bathed in your prayers. We know, without a shadow of a doubt, that you've been praying for us. We know that you've been praying for Xavier as he's been growing. He was 3 when we moved here. He was tiny. He had a little man bun. He was so little. And we know that you've been praying for Holly and for Eleanor since we've announced that Holly was pregnant. And I can tell you this, being a pastor can be very difficult. We've been in places where we didn't feel like the people had our back. It didn't feel like the people were praying for us. It felt like they were praying for me to become the pastor they used to have. Your support has meant the world to me. I know Pastor Doug's been praying for me in this next step in my journey for a while now. And I want to make something clear while I have this moment. We were not looking for another job. I had not been sending out my resume looking for something bigger or for something better. I had had a few DSs call me, and they'd ask me for my resume. We have this opening. Would you be willing to consider it? And I would always give them my resume because I didn't want to close a door that God didn't want closed. I didn't want to be the one to close it right away. And so I'd give my resume. But I told each of them, I told each of our DSs that called us, I said, I'm telling a DS this, you have a job here. Your job is to woo us away from a place that we don't want to leave. We love it in Mundelein. You are going to have to convince us to leave this place. And we love it so much because of your prayers and because of your support. Which brings me to my 4th grievance. You people. You treated my family far too well. I can't possibly say enough about the blessings you've showered on my wife and my son. They have both thrived here. Holly was living without her immediate family being close to her for the first time in her life, and Xavier was living away from his grandparents. And he was the only grandchild on either side. And that's very hard to do. It's hard to move to a city where you don't know anyone. Now, it's easier for me than it is for them because I'm the one with the job. I'm also, you might not know this about me, let me let you in on something. I'm also highly extroverted. And I don't have problems meeting new people. But you guys made this scary place a home for us by embracing us as family. You have made Mundelein home. And to be honest, part of what made leaving Mundelein so difficult for us was the idea that we were taking away a baby that you were all so excited to meet. And I want to be clear, we will bring her here at the earliest possible time so that you can get a chance to meet her. We will wait for some COVID restrictions to lift so that you can hold her and snuggle her and love on her a little bit. We will be back with her, I promise. Unless Doug won't let me. If we don't, blame it on him. But to the Sunday school teachers who spent so much time with Xavier, to the ladies who pulled Holly into the ladies' ministry, to the people who refused to let Holly be too shy, to the groups of people we shared meals with, I thank you from the bottom of my heart. I can never repay you for making my family feel so welcome here for the past 5 years. And that brings me to my final grievance. And I know I'm going to get in trouble for this one, but what can you do? Fire me? I hadn't been here long. It had just been a couple of months. And I had started growing my beard out a little bit. Now, when I'd come for my interviews, it had been neat, it had been trimmed, kind of like it is right now. But what I wanted to do was take the opportunity, those brutal Chicago winters. I wanted to take the opportunity to grow it out a little bit, have a longer beard, which I've since done most winters. Now, I was never told that first winter to trim it down. I was never told to keep it neat, at least not in so many words. But I was very clearly told to trim it and keep it neat. And I was so mad. I was livid. I was so angry with the person who didn't tell me but told me to trim my beard. I was so mad. And I thought, here we go again. Another pastor who majors in minors. Another pastor who has the silliest rules for no reason. What does it hurt if I grow out my beard? It doesn't hurt. I just want to. I was furious. And I remember I came down here into the Welcome Center, and I called my mentor, and I told him how mad I was so mad. And he told me that I was overreacting. And the truth is, I think I probably was. However, my final grievance is all for Doug. There's no good reason that I couldn't have had a long beard that first winter when I was here. And there's no good reason that I couldn't have let it grow all the way to my waist. And there's no good reason that I couldn't have braided it like a dwarf from Lord of the Rings. And it would have been both majestic and glorious. Feels good to say that. But that's not my actual grievance. Doug, my grievance is that you've been the best boss I've ever had. I've learned so much in these 5 years. We've debated everything. Church, we've debated everything. If it's there, we've debated about it. We've pushed each other. Doug, you've pushed me to grow. You've pushed me to change. You've pushed me to adapt. You've pushed me to be better. You've taught me so much about running board meetings, preparing sermons, walking through life with people, being generous, investing, being a dad, being a husband, being a Christian, being a pastor, and so much more. And as I prepare to walk into the new place and take a new chair, I've got to be honest, one of my goals is just to make you proud. And I want you to know I appreciate everything you've done for me since I've been here. I know that you've protected me in a number of ways, and you've pushed me in a couple of ways. And we haven't always agreed, and I think that's okay. But I never, ever, ever, not for one tiny second, felt like you were not in my corner. I never felt like you, Doug, I never felt like you weren't for me. And church, I want to tell you something. That's rare. That doesn't happen everywhere. And that's not the case for every staff pastor. That's not the case. So these are my grievances on this belated Festivus celebration. For those of you who are familiar with the traditions of Festivus, you know what should come next. Those are feats of strength, of course. And while on any given day I could wrestle any of you to the ground, we will forego feats of strength today due to social distancing regulations. But you should know that on any given day, I could wrestle any of you to the ground. But we won't do that today. But in all seriousness, I asked Libby if she would sing a new song with you this morning to finish up this service. This song is called The Blessing. And it sums up beautifully what I'd like from you to hear from me on this, which is my last occasion to speak to you as one of your pastors. I want to thank you so much for 5.5 wonderful, wonderful years. And my prayer is that the Lord will bless you and keep you and make his face shine upon you and give you peace. Thank you so much.